We're just waiting for it to show up on the YouTube link. You said there's about a 20-second delay, right?
A little bit of a lag. Oh, there we go. Good morning, everyone. We are live from Studio Catholic Education Center. And welcome to Institute 2020. This is Kelly Eamon. And first of all, before we get into the Tech Rabbi keynote speaker, some important business items. I want to thank everybody for joining us today and being courageous and trying something a little bit different. It's our first time to do a virtual institute. And as always, we're a little nervous behind the scenes with the technology, but we got the Tech Rabbi and the wonderful Jenna Rodriguez helping us out with this. So thank you to them. And thank you to our supervisors. First of all, Andrea Ward, who looked after the Institute plan for our ESPs and support staff. And thank you to Sherry Chase, our supervisor of curriculum instruction, who worked with all the coordinators and consultants to set up the Institute for Learning for our teachers. So without any further delay, we're going to get into the Institute. I want to respectfully acknowledge that we are blessed to live and to learn on Treaty 4 territory, the traditional homelands of the Nehiyawak, the Nakaway, the Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis, Lakota, and Dakota.
Good morning. Before I lead us in prayer together as a Regina Catholic Schools family, I'd like to share a short story with you called The Good Pilot. As I boarded a plane, the pilot called my name. He was standing in the cockpit entrance greeting passengers. "Well, hello, Max." I looked up and to my surprise, it was my friend Joe. He's been flying forever. He's faced every flight crisis from electrical storms to empty fuel tanks. Joe was a very good pilot. And he was a friend, a good friend, good in skill and good in heart. We chatted for a few minutes and I went to my seat with a real sense of assurance. What more could I ask for, I thought. The pilot is experienced and proven. Even more, he is my tried and true friend. I am in good hands. This knowledge came in handy. An hour into the flight, we hit a wall of winds. People gasped and dentures rattled. I had smoother roller coaster rides. Unlike the other passengers, I stayed calm. I knew the pilot. I knew his heart and trusted his skill. Joe can handle this, I told myself. The storm was bad, but the pilot was good. And so much as one can relax on a plane during turbulence, I did. Friends, it's a stormy world out there. The question during these troubling times is this: do you have a good pilot? The resounding response throughout the Bible is yes. Please join me in the sign of our faith. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, I pray this morning with my friends and colleagues by thanking you for the many blessings in our lives. Thank you, Lord, for our good health. We remember in our prayers all those who are sick or suffering in any way. May we take time to be with those who are struggling and be the light of Christ in their time of darkness. Thank you for our jobs, Lord. We have been blessed with employment while many people are desperately looking for a job and unable to provide the basic needs for their families. May we do our part in helping the poor and feeding the hungry. Thank you for our Regina Catholic School Division, Lord, and the opportunity to share our love of Jesus with the students in our classrooms. Nurture in each one of us a deeper, more personal relationship with you. Give us the desire to want to know your ways and your love. Open our eyes to find you in one another, in our world, and within ourselves. Most importantly, give us courage in these very uncertain times, Creator God, knowing you are the greatest pilot. May we truly trust that you have a good flight plan for each of us. Help us to surrender all our fears and worries over to you, so we can remain calm and truly enjoy the many blessings that you have given us. Please join me in praying the Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Have a great day. Peace be with you.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for that beautiful prayer. So we will get into Institute. It's with honor and excitement that I introduce our keynote speaker on behalf of the Regina Catholic Schools Achievement Team. Our keynote this is our first ever virtual institute, and we have internationally renowned speaker, the Tech Rabbi. So Michael Cohen is an educator, a designer, and a creativity instigator. He's joining us from Los Angeles today, where he is the Director of Innovation at an all-boys high school. He is also a renowned and highly sought-after speaker. And he is also ranked as one of the top 50 EdTech influencers. Finally, he is an author, and our connected educators have engaged in his awesome book, Educated by Design, for the past 2 summers in our book chat. And St. Michael, St. Josephat, and O'Neill were also fortunate enough to win signed copies to raffle off to the staff. So with that, we welcome Michael, and we would also just invite you to share your learning throughout the day on your social media channels with the hashtag RCSD Institute. And we also invite you to follow Michael and tag him when sharing your takeaways from his keynote. So thank you, Michael, and take it away.
Okay. Everyone can hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm really excited to be here. I wish I was a little closer to being here, but the beauty of technology is that we can be everywhere. I am beaming to you from my studio in Los Angeles, where we have beautiful weather, beautiful palm trees. I'm not sure what the weather looks like right now for all of you in Saskatchewan, but I think that today's conversation is meant for both of us. I've been doing a tremendous amount of reflection over the past 7 or 8 months, trying to really figure out how these evergreen principles of creativity can really stand not just the test of time, but can stand up in the face of incredible challenge. So hold on, let me just, I love technology. So my name is Michael Cohen, as I was so kindly introduced, and I'm also known as the Tech Rabbi. And I've had an interesting journey going through both the design world as well as the world of education. Right now, starting this fall was my 12th year in education, really trying to figure out ways that I could always take that design, that marketing, those communication skills that I spent so much time helping companies foster and thrive and be successful. How could I do that for young people? And one of the things that I realized is that for students, they need an opportunity to discover. They need an opportunity to figure things out. And when I look at my own schooling experience, I really saw that the path was already paved for me. And I knew exactly when the obstacles would be that I needed to jump over or jump under. And the work that I do now, both at my own school and beyond, is really focused on empowering students to really take charge of their own journey. If you want to take out your device, I'm not sure if you are in a large group, if you're sitting on your own device, but you could take out your smartphone and you could scan this QR code. There are a lot of things that I'm going to discuss over the next hour, and some of it is ideas, some of it's stories, but some of it is activity. And we'll engage in a couple of those activities, or we'll reflect on some of those activities. And I want to be able to give those activities to you, give you those resources. So if you scan that, then you'll be able to get those after the day is over. So I'll get back to that in a few moments if you haven't had a chance to scan it. So before we start this journey, as Jenna had shared, to have that conversation carry over into social media. I think right now, what I'm finding educators need the most is they need a sense of community. They need to have a feeling of connectedness. And so many times you have these incredible communities that are on Twitter, their Facebook groups, wherever they are on social. It's an opportunity to connect with other educators beyond the four walls of your classroom and, of course, your school as well. So if you hit that QR code, it sends you to my Twitter profile. And if you could spend some time reflecting as I share stories, the stories are nice. But what I have found over the years of sharing my story is that the questions that come out that I have an opportunity to then answer later are really what creates that sustainable and lifelong impact, is being able to take my story, spark curiosity with you, but then address that curiosity and that reality for you so that you can feel as successful as I might have felt as I shared that experience that I went through. So Educated by Design. Educated by Design is the culmination of about 5-6 years worth of work. I spent a tremendous amount of time during my graduate work trying to figure out and how to capture the way in which I see creativity materializing. Because so many times we limit ourselves, we limit our creativity, we limit our confidence around creativity because we don't understand or we're not familiar with the pathway. Or what's even more challenging is when we are familiar with it, but we don't have a terminology to use with it. And so we don't know how to dig deeper. We just kind of go with the flow. And those types of people are called naturally creative. And I was one of those naturally creative people who just seemed to understand the world around me and come up with interesting and creative ideas. But the reality is that we all have that innate creativity. And it's about finding ways to reveal it. And when we reveal it in ourselves, when we have a little bit more confidence in our own creativity, we're able to give over that roadmap to our students and support them along the way. Now, I always start this conversation around Educated by Design with this email, because this email came to me the first year that I came to the high school that I'm at. And this student here is, he's like the best student on paper that you would ever want. He's the straight A student. He's the student that has all of these incredible checklist items of AP courses and award-winning essays and just amazing academics. He can't take my entrepreneurship course because it's an elective that will actually drag down his GPA. So he comes to me at lunch. He comes to me in his free time, and he confides in me ideas that he has. And he sent me this email, and I think about this email at least once a month. The student has all of this academic success surrounding him, but he doesn't have confidence. He doesn't have confidence in himself. He doesn't have confidence in grappling with the unknown and the uncharted. And after he graduates, he sends me a text message. I don't remember the day that I graduated high school this vividly, like what was I doing exactly at, the 2 or 3 hours the next day. But to be text messaging a teacher that I'm ready to start learning was probably not one of them. He sends me his text message, and now he's ready to learn. Why? Because he has left the confines of school. He's left the confines of the academic rigidity that has prevented him from exploring or trying anything new. And so what ends up happening is that we miss opportunities to build connections, build relationships, and support our students in dealing with these really exciting things because for fear of academic failure. So to begin the journey, we have to define creativity as a mindset. It isn't a talent. It's not an expression. Creativity is a way of thinking to then act on that. And it doesn't always have to be something that is artistic or musical. It happens to be that I went to art school, so you're going to see over the next 45 minutes or so as we continue through this journey that most of the slides are hand-drawn, they're illustrated, and that's my way of expressing creativity, but that is not the only way. It is far from the only way. And I'm really on a mission to showcase how creativity has no connection exclusively to talents and expression. Where if I would ask you what makes someone creative, you would 9 times out of 10 describe something culinary, musical, artistic, some sort of skill. It's the way of thinking. And so what my challenge is, not just for all of you, but even for myself, is how can I invest more energy? It doesn't mean invest all the energy, but more energy, not just on the knowledge and the skill that we all agree is important. Our students have to be knowledgeable, but are we giving them information to fill their brain, or are we giving them information that gives them the ability to think for themselves, to think analytically, to be strong problem solvers? But most importantly, can we invest more time and energy? And I think now, more than ever, is the time to give our students a chance to develop skills around the abstract and the unknown. I mentioned before this idea of belief, this idea of confidence, I should say. But confidence is rooted in belief. And I found in the work that I do, trying to take students and show them that the writing that you do, the math that you do, the history that you learn about, the other courses that you are focused on, the religion aspect of it, I think we both have that relationship. My school is a Jewish Orthodox boys' high school, and religion and character are huge components of it. How do we take that and how do we give that turn that into a vehicle to support students in pursuing things that they're passionate about, pursuing exciting ideas, things that they really want to see in the world. And it's belief. It's belief in themselves. They lack that self-confidence. They lack that self-awareness because they've never given an opportunity really to pursue that. And then they have this lack of belief in others. They don't trust others, that others will follow through, that they think that students, when they work in groups, that a student might take over and not let them have their moment of success, their moment to shine. And then, of course, the belief in something bigger than themselves. And it all comes down to finding that sweet spot. The students at my school, and when I ask many educators around the world, it's pretty similar. Students are taught to get good grades so that you can get a high-paying job, regardless if it brings you any joy, or even worse, if every single day of your life you are in a profession that you hate, but you're told, go for these professions, do this to make money to be successful. And so they don't love it, and they don't realize that there are so many opportunities, especially with the internet. to figure out big ideas, big things that the world needs. And there's the big world, there's the entire world, and then sometimes there's a small world in our own community. But it's that impact beyond us. It's that impact around us that students have an opportunity to pursue, and finding that sweet spot, being able to find that space that gets them excited every day. Now, I want you to think for a moment, because I said before that creativity is something that we all have. And at some point, we lose it. So when did you lose it? Think for a second. When did you feel creative and you were told or you felt that you were no longer creative because of external opinion, external influence? So for some of us, it was first grade, kindergarten, second grade. We didn't even last that long. Others maybe made it through to middle school, high school, and maybe some of us never had this obstacle. But I think we need to focus on creating environments where students can understand what creativity is for themselves and be supported, and being able to give them that space to struggle and fail, but in the end to be successful. And I'm excited for the Q&A later today, because there's some amazing questions, especially one question that just jumped out on the screen for me was about the false growth mindset, where you as the mentor might inadvertently create an environment that is trying to be growth mindset, but ends up actually not being growth mindset because of a couple criteria, a couple things that are missing. And I realized that it really starts with that space. It starts with developing that self-awareness. And then it can lead to building some core skills. So this is a very famous chart. If it's the first time that you're seeing it, I highly recommend you write down the World Economic Forum somewhere, whether you write it in your mind, on a piece of paper, digitally. The World Economic Forum is a global organization that focuses on so many different areas of importance, from climate change to education to clean energy, and then of course robotics, artificial intelligence, the shifting landscape of work. And as you can see on the screen here, the fourth industrial revolution. We had the agricultural revolution, we had the industrial revolution, we had a technology revolution. But this is different, because what's happened is that robots and intelligent design has created an opportunity for us to figure out how to be more effective humans. Now, some will say, well, actually, it has created a competition and we're out of a business. No, we're out of a business, just like the milkman and the ice delivery person is out of business, right? The refrigerator took a lot of jobs away, but there's going to be thousands of new jobs that enter into the world. And what's really important for our students is that they learn the skills that are going to make them shine where robots can't. And so we look at complex problem solving, critical thinking. It's 2020 right now. It's been a rough year. And of course, this has just a couple more months left on the shelf life. And as you see here, I pull out my red teacher pen, you can see that the way that it plays out is that creativity 5 years ago barely made the list. And you see all of these different, quality control can easily be replaced by machine learning. You don't need a human to analyze and ensure the standardization of quality across multiple variables, multiple units. But you see things are shifting around, and there's new skills that are coming into the purview. But one of the things that I was really excited about is how creativity wedged itself in third place. And that's because creativity should never be above critical thinking and complex problem solving, because that is what creativity is all about. And as I run through the rest of the talk today, you're going to see how all of these different skills that I'll discuss, all these different principles, are all going to tie in and really focus on how creativity is a driving force for problem solving and for thinking in really interesting ways. So fortunately, World Economic Forum updated last year the slide. They're only going 2-year projection here, but you can see the growing skill focus is still on analytical thinking, on learning strategies, on being able to focus on creativity, and then technology driving that, right? Technology driving that. So wait a second. I said that creativity is never going to pass critical thinking and complex problem solving, but here it is, just 2 years later has surpassed it. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's because critical thinking and complex problem solving have a certain scope set. And it's like, okay, here's a problem, it's defined, and I'm going to figure it out. It might be a really hard problem. It might be something in calculus AB, or it might be some very challenging analysis of a very complex piece of literature in an AP English class. But that's not what it's about when we think about creativity. It's about discovering new things. It's about being adaptable. It's about finding ways to engage with that unknown, that abstract, that then now the critical thinking and the complex problem solving and the creativity are driving. It's driving strategy, it's driving analytical thinking, and it's driving innovation. So I want us to run through this challenge. I love this challenge. If you've already done this challenge, humor me or blow everybody out of the water. Right now, the international champion of the paperclip challenges, one of my now seniors, in 2 minutes, he was able to develop 46 different ways to turn a paperclip into some sort of useful object. And so for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to get out my stopwatch here. For the next 2 minutes, we are going to challenge ourselves. We have a paperclip. Imagine that paperclip. Maybe you see one lying around wherever you are. I need you to think, and I need you to just list them out, or you can just think in your head and just count on your fingers, however you go about it. For 2 minutes right now, I want us to come up with an exhaustive list. If you want to work with a partner, I've even let people work with partners, and in 2 minutes, they still can't beat my student. He's excited. Every time we do this, he's just absolutely thrilled. So 2 minutes starting right now. You already have 3 on the screen. How many interesting little objects can be created, or I should say not little, but interesting objects can be created with a paperclip starting right now? Okay, so that was 2 minutes. It flies by. Now, usually I'd be standing in an amazingly crowded auditorium and people would be, I would be shouting out numbers, you know, who had 10, who had 20, who had 30, and people's hands would raise up, and it would be a very, very different experience than me standing here alone in my studio. So if you want to put in the chat, if you want to put on social media, how many did you get? So most of the time, no one gets more than 20. I've had the 30s before. Let's see, we got some chat over here. So what is this activity all about? Is this about paper clips? No, it's not about paper clips. Now, one of the things that's really important is a term called functional fixedness. And for anyone that has seen Sir Ken Robinson, his famous TED Talk, I think it's actually the most famous TED Talk ever watched. Do schools kill creativity? So he shares in his talk this challenge. And I had read about it in a number of books as well as seeing it in his TED Talk. And I was really fascinated with this term functional fixedness, that this activity, and there are many others that are similar to it, are connected to. And what is functional fixedness? Functional fixedness is a cognitive process that limits your resources or limits opportunities based on past experience. And so you probably imagined, and I apologize because I said the word little, and I'm not supposed to say that word, because who said that the paperclip is little? Even right now, as I'm sharing this, I cognitively I think, even though I know the answer before I even shared it, I think it's a small paperclip. Paperclips are small. Sometimes you might have gone to the office supply store and you saw like a big plastic paperclip and you chuckled like, oh, that's totally impractical. But Sir Ken Robinson asked, what if the paperclip was 200 feet tall and made out of foam? One of the things that my students came up with, or this student, I should say, he said a chair. And I said, a chair for who? A mouse? An ant? I mean, what are we talking about here, a chair? And he said, no, you have this ginormous paperclip, but it bends and it opens up into kind of like a hammock chair that you can fold and then you can put away flat and store away. And I was blown away. 46 ideas. And one of the things that happens, there's other challenges as well that we go through with this, where we go through this process of sometimes very connected solutions where we say, okay, well, you could bend the paperclip into a circle. Oh, you can bend it into a square. Oh, you can bend it into a triangle. You just keep going. There's another really cool activity that I'll share in the resources after this talk called the 30 Circle Challenge. It was developed in Stanford by Professor Bob McKim. And it's 30 circles on a grid, and you have to turn the circles into as many identifiable objects as you can. And the similar process you go through where you're like, okay, circle, and you just kind of like, okay, well, sporting equipment. Okay, you just keep going, because you're not broadening your thinking. You get very narrow and very focused. And one of the challenges around functional fixedness, and a huge obstacle, it's really why it's the second principle around creativity, is this failure. And when we think about failure and the nervousness around it, what does failure look like in our schools? So failure usually looks like, okay, I had a test, I had an essay, I had a quiz, I had a class, and I didn't do well, and I got a bad grade, and I failed that. And then we associate that with us. I'm a failure. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at this. And the problem is we don't give our students an opportunity to build reflection skills into their life. I think now more than ever, because of the challenges that we're facing, whether you're hybrid or you're in person half the week, my school is still virtual and we have 2 days a week where the students come for 2 hours and like an after school enrichment type experience. We have to build in these life skills. We have to give them these skills. And one of those is reflection. So you see the word failure, right? The fail acronym was super popular over the years. First attempt in learning. I was like, yeah, and then second attempt and third attempt. And guess what? If you just keep attempting and going over and over again, you're going to keep failing because you're not shifting. You're not adjusting. Why? Because you're not reflecting. And so I was looking at the word failure. And I said, there's got to be something more here. And I realized that failure is actually the complete acronym. First attempt in learning, unless reflection exists. And if you give students opportunities to reflect and figure out exactly how it is that they did or they didn't, so you end up setting them up for success. And so when we think about failure, okay, failure could look like this. Failure could look like, oh wait, I didn't plan. Oh, I wasn't thinking. Oh, I waited till the last minute. Oh, I wasn't ready. I didn't have everything set up. Or it could be, I tried something. I really put a lot of energy into it, and it didn't quite work out the way I anticipated. Well, why not? Let's take a look and let's reflect and let's break down the process of this journey so that you can do it again. How many opportunities do we give our students to do it again and to try again and to succeed for full credit, for full grade? Because they showed the effort, they showed the energy, they showed the passion, and we want them to succeed. So I have a wall of failures in my classroom. We have it laser etched and we add on to it as we go. And it runs through the gamut. And one of the things that I found so fascinating as we go through this process is students struggling with being the failure or failing at the thing. Like, I failed at becoming an animator. Well, why? Oh, because I couldn't create, a 2-hour animated film by the end of the school year. I said, well, okay, yeah, that's why you failed, because you set a milestone, right? You set a goal that was clearly unreachable given the amount of time in small chunks daily, and then the amount of time from the beginning to the end of the goal. So showing students how to manage goals, how to be accountable for their milestones, and really being able to support them in a powerful way. And I always look to games, mostly because I find almost all students enjoy a good game, some a little bit more than others. And if you Google video game, try again, you will see that is the whole premise of games. There is no game over and it's you never do it again. It's try again. Game over. Press X to try again. Game over. Thanks for playing. Please try again. Do it again and get it right and get a little bit further than you did before and never stop. Never give up. That's what games and gamification can teach our students. Back before we went into distance learning, I had a challenge where students were given a certain amount of material, duct tape, cardboard, and they had to create a chair that I had to sit on for 30 seconds without breaking. And some of them worked and some of them didn't. And I said to them, what grade do you think you're going to get? And they said, well, our chair broke under you, so we didn't succeed. And I said to them, well, why didn't you succeed? Did you not succeed because you're focused simply on this process of I must build a chair so that my teacher can sit on it and then I can get an A and move on? Or can you be reflective? Can you look at the engineering process? Can you analyze the other groups that were successful and figure out why? And then share that reflection, because that also has value. It's not just about the end product. Even when we create things what I was doing with the Innovation Lab is I took home 3D printers and I still had students creating. They were creating remotely and we were building and creating. And at the end, the process, whether it's distance or not, it's about giving them a chance to really figure things out. And the irony with this project was actually the student who had the simplest, most geometric catapult for this science, math, engineering collaboration project So people are like, oh, his isn't going to work. His is like so big and bulky. The ones that were trying to design them based off of the medieval schematics or medieval illustrations, those ones were really weak. And this one that this student had created was incredibly, incredibly powerful. I also have students working on startups, and 95% of startups, maybe 99% of startups fail. But having students go through that process of actually trying to solve a problem, even if they fail along the way, is probably one of the most fulfilling moments of my education career. I spent 3 years building this program, and I'm finally at the point where I have students who are pitching their ideas to adults that are in the business world, getting feedback from them, creating prototypes and doing market research, doing things that most people don't experience until graduate school, doing primary research and then analyzing that data. And I realized that all of those things are possible because I have helped the students discover something that they're passionate about. I share this in the book for those that read. It's a picture of the light bulb, right? Edison was not trying to invent the light bulb. He was trying to invent the ability for the world to see in the dark, right? He had this drive, he had this passion to solve problems. And a lot of the times with students, they get caught up on, I need to invent something brand new. I need to try something that's never been done before. And I said, instead of trying to create something from nothing, why don't you take something and turn it into something more? There's a famous verse in the Bible, right? There's nothing new under the sun, from King Solomon. And people use that quote all the time. And it actually kind of bothered me a little bit. And I looked at some commentary around this quote. And one of the commentaries said, all the ingredients exist, but it's up to us to figure out how to put them together to make new things. And I look at things like the iPhone. Steve Jobs didn't invent the smartphone. There were smartphones before that. I don't know if anyone had a BlackBerry or a Palm, right? They existed. They connected to the internet. They could send emails. He figured out how to create something by merging together things that exist to create a new value. And I think that value is driven by empathy. I'm very passionate about the design thinking process, because it starts with empathy and it goes through this process of really defining and coming up with ideas focused on someone else that you are passionate about helping. We need to build those skills for our students. When I have my students going through the design thinking process, they're mapping things out and it's really exciting. But that core and the success of all of the different projects that I have students working on, whether it's in our STEAM and Innovation Lab when they're freshmen, whether it's in the engineering, advanced engineering and computer science programs, or whether it's in the entrepreneurship program. Whatever it is, it's about drawing those skills that they have from their other academic classes and leveraging those communication, those analytical skills, tapping into the historical context of what it is that they're focused on to really be able to research and know how to analyze and figure out what came before this. And just because I didn't come up with the idea first, what can I do about it? I have some resources that I'll share, but on the left side, it's a little bit more advanced. You as a teacher can be using this to use design thinking in your classroom to create learning environments, learning experiences where you can actually analyze and support your students by using an empathy map and really taking a look at not just what your students think or what they say or what they do or what they should be doing, but how do they feel? And really being able to map that out. I think middle school, high school students could also use this for observation, but how do we start from a younger age? And I love this little lesson that I created called Kindness by the Dozen, where it's an observation of myself and it's an observation of others. And by being able to observe and reflect and being self-aware around these different character traits, we can then have a conversation with our students because they are nurtured to be more aware of themselves and those around them. Then we can start to build in that empathy piece by having them first start with this Kindness by the Dozen experience. I've seen some pretty amazing things come out of this. Now, one of the things that I do with my students and I love it. I absolutely love it. It's called the Combine and Innovate Challenge. And what we do is I have these little cards that I cut out, and I put them in a box, I mix it up. I use a randomizer right now because we're digital, and I give them 2 random objects. I give them between 2 to 3 days to develop a prototype. And I tell them, the recipe for success with this is being able to figure out who uses these objects so that you can help improve their lives. And the students that are focused on creative inventiveness, that are trying to come up with a really cool, smart invention, struggle for days. And then it's like too late. And then they're scrambling, the last couple hours of the final day to like get something together. But the students that actually go through the process of understanding a person and their challenges, so they thrive and they love it. And you see here, these 2 students, I love this because this is like a moment of transparency with me. So I love coming up with these ideas, but I'm not exactly sure, how capable my students are to take a very sort of abstract idea and sort of broad instructions and then implement it. And I have a little bit of luxury because it's the high school level, so I can do this. I don't know if you could do this at middle school, and I definitely don't recommend it with elementary school. So I'll share the resource, sort of the worksheet, although I don't really like worksheets, but the worksheet for this. But before I created the worksheet, I said to myself, I want to create the worksheet with the students. And so I'm going to actually just give them the instructions and see how they map it out. And I had 2 amazing examples out of 20 or 30 of these group projects where they basically showed me how I need to create the worksheet through the mind of one of my students. And so here it's just very raw on paper, basically analyzing the functionality of the different objects, the limitations of the 2 objects, and then they start the ideas, right? And so on the right side, you actually have one of my favorite ones is it's an industrial drill. And anytime you pair it with something, it's always exciting. So in this case, it was coffee. And they have this apparatus that attaches onto the drill, and it creates heat through the friction and the momentum of the drill so that you can cook up a single serve cup of coffee. And then you could hand that off to one of your coworkers and they could use it as well. So it's not about creating an invention that's going to go to market and then spending the year really building that out and into a prototype, although it could happen. It's really focused on this process of how do I teach students to understand the needs of others, the challenges of others, the opportunities of others, and then bring value to them. And then what do I need to do to make that happen? And that's that analytical thinking, critical thinking, the creativity, the one on the right, it's called the drill latte. Like they didn't came up with the name for it. That wasn't even part of the assignment. On the other side, the left side, they had a shirt and a lamp, right? And they end up coming up with this really amazing way for construction workers who work the night shift or work early morning when it's dark. That it could be a light system, not just for safety, because they have other lights for that, but a light up system to know which type of employee is far away if you need support from someone and you don't have walkie-talkie access. So the foreman's going to have a certain amount of color, maybe the crane operator, whatever it is. It was just a cool way for them to improve the communication and collaboration of construction workers. So that leads to that collaboration piece where I love opportunities for students to collaborate. Now, collaboration is not cooperation. Cooperation is where we all play nicely together and everybody gets along and it's really nice and then we finish the project. And if you think about your favorite group project, right, the one that you love. So when I think about it, there are usually 2 types of group projects. You have a group project where you did all the work and made sure that you got an A and everyone got an A with you, or you didn't do any work and you just showed up and somehow you snuck by and got an A with everybody else. I find it really fascinating because cooperation is basically like, we just got to get this done and it's easy to take it over. But when you collaborate, you have to find roles. You have to build a team. And so what I do here, this is a rapid prototype challenge. You could do this with students at home. They just have to have some cardboard, some Sharpie, some paper, some duct tape or masking tape, and you basically give them a challenge. This challenge was actually to take the poem from Shel Silverstein, The Homework Machine, and then have them actually create a homework machine. So as you see here, they each have a role. Some of them are advising, some of them are brainstorming, some of them are cutting, some of them are drawing, some of them are duct taping, but whatever it is, it was very clear that not one single person could take over and just make this happen. So in the end, what they end up creating is these incredible homework machines. And as you can see here, I'm a little bit obsessed with cardboard, a little bit obsessed with duct tape, because I just think it's super quick at building those brainstorming and critical thinking motors in the brain. And the students then had to pitch their homework machines. And here's another example. I actually did this with a group of teachers, but I've then, since then, also done it with students as well. It's called the empathy game, where you have to construct a game that teaches and supports empathy and practices empathy. And in the bottom left corner of this, you can see over here, it doesn't look like much. Right, and I saw a bunch of comments and I just wanted to quickly look and take a look. And one of them is like, what does this look like for first and second graders? So it's simple. It just looks more scaffolded, right? It just has to have a little bit more structure to it, but you can still give students that creative expression. So I think teaching them using the observation, building that empathy, you can introduce design thinking to first and second graders. I think they can slowly build the empathy muscle that they have in their heart and in their mind. But when you go through this process of creation, you just have to have a certain amount of structure. But I think it's still possible. I've done this with fifth grade all the way to university professors, these types of activities that I share. And it's been a while since I was at a K-8, but I did spend 6.5 years at a K-8 school. And while we did some really amazing things with technology, with 3D printing and maker spaces, I wasn't quite at that point where I was able to bring the design thinking process to that grade level. Just in all of my responsibilities, I want to be transparent with that. But I do believe now where I'm at today that I could bring that to that level. So I think that you can as well. So as getting back to this grid here of different empathy games. So you have like the empathy die, where you have to roll the die. It's a giant die, and have different conversations. But the one on the left, it's very interesting. You have to build this like communication tower, and each one of you has a popsicle stick with resources, and you cannot win the game unless you have helped at least 2 people in the game advance forward. And it's really about analyzing and seeing the challenges and the limitations of others and having that empathy that you can still succeed while helping others at the same time. And that's a really important way of thinking, a set of character traits. And I think that it's super important for students to be able to have that opportunity to build that together. More collaboration. This is 3rd grade students that have taken a traditional research project around Native American culture. And usually it was like a PowerPoint on the screen, on the smartboard, and you would have the students present and put everybody to sleep. And we said, well, what can we do to create something a little bit more exciting? And we ended up creating this really powerful interactive book project where students used Book Creator on the iPad. They created interactive experiences that had audio, it had pictures and video, it had drawings, it had different artifacts that they were able to capture, and basically create an experience where 3rd grade students were teaching 3rd grade students. And I think that facilitation of learning is something that I'm super proud of, because I wasn't sure, and neither was the teacher that I collaborated with. Can third graders, can second graders, and we took this all the way down to second and third grade, and it was happening on a regular basis, right? We even did it at first grade. We took Scratch, the computer programming language, and we paired that with Writer's Workshop so that the students could actually visualize their story by coding it. And then it fueled this writing frenzy because they had so much substance to observe and then write about because they had created the storyline. I had students creating and collaborating together with professionals. We had a student who was getting kind of sick of me talking about all these podcasts that I listened to. And once upon a time when I was spending a lot more time in the car, and he said, well, you know what you're focused on. Students don't. I said, well, make a podcast to fix that problem. And he ended up with me interviewing about, I think, 9 or 10 different amazing professionals and really capturing their journey to show students what they need to focus on besides for academic success, right? We had students collaborating with experts, which I think right now is the time, because everyone is working remote. People have more time on their hands. So I was super blessed to be able to have 3 incredible judges that I couldn't afford to fly to California if they even had the time to dedicate, a full day, maybe even 2 days to be part of it. But because it was remote, you can connect with experts. You can connect with rocket scientists. You can connect with startup founders. You can connect with amazing people in business, right? You're learning about history. You can connect with a historian. People have more time and they're willing to Zoom. They're willing to hop into a Teams chat, whatever virtual platform you're using, right? I mean, it was an amazing experience to have my students pitch to these professionals and to get feedback and encouragement from them. So I think that it's not just collaborating with our peers as students or us colleagues having more opportunity to collaborate with our direct peers, our direct colleagues at our school sites, or maybe beyond in our entire school district or beyond internationally around the world. We have these opportunities, and even though these types of opportunities of proximity can't happen right now, there's still amazing ways that we can collaborate together. I mean, in theory, we're collaborating right now. I mean, there's definitely an energy that's missing because I want to see all of your smiling faces. But we're having this opportunity to not only have a conversation, it's kind of one way right now, but this chat is full of amazing insights, amazing questions. And I'm going to spend the day after the Q&A later this afternoon going through and responding to these. So make sure you also go on to Twitter and ask these questions as well so that my response can be shared with the greater educator community. But this is what it's about. It's about getting a deeper understanding. But then what are we going to do tomorrow? Well, if I can address and support you in your reality, so then your tomorrow is going to be different, besides just maybe being and hopefully being inspired by the ideas that I'm sharing. Now, ideas are important because we want our students to be comfortable thinking and putting ideas down and having the confidence to share ideas, regardless of if their peers are going to think the ideas are good. But ideas have to lead to action. They have to lead to action. So I have this really exciting activity. You could do this tomorrow. This isn't one of those like beginning of the year activities, but you basically pose a question. What do you wish you could do every day and get paid for? And you have the students go through this process, and some of them are like, oh, I want to watch Netflix all day. I'm like, okay, great. You want to watch Netflix all day. So there's the vertical thinking, which is like magically convincing someone that you're going to watch Netflix and they're going to like write you a check every day. Or how do you go horizontal? How do you broaden the thinking and understand all the application? And so I start to tell them, well, guess what? If you want to watch Netflix all day, then you need to become a reviewer and you need to build your writing skills because you need to start blogging. And maybe you want to also do a vlog where you're building your verbal communication skills and all the planning and execution and marketing and brainstorming and business strategy that you need to learn so that you at age 15, 16, or 17 can create this experience where people are getting value because you watch a lot of television, a lot of movies, so that they can make the right decision with their time and not be disappointed. And you don't have to go to college to be a writer or to be a copywriter or to be a journalist. You could do it right now as a middle school or high school student if you're passionate about it, you want to put the time in. But it's more than just playing video games to be a professional video game player, or it's more than just watching Netflix all day, or it's more than just, in the case here, I said, well, if you can't go pro with soccer, what are you going to do? I said, oh, there's like so many other ways that I could implement this. I could open up a soccer shop. I could open up a soccer tutoring and trainer. I could do it remotely. I could do an online soccer training for students. And whatever it is, it's about that broad level of thinking. I have a student, I'm so proud of him, mostly because he spent 3 years working on this startup part-time at the school. I came into the school and he was a sophomore, and he took it all the way every single year. And in the beginning, it was messy. He's like trying to build an app, and he doesn't know how to build an app. And there's all this planning and user experience and interaction and things. And it's like, how are you going to create this? And then finally, he figures out, like, oh, he can create it. But he didn't just go create an app. He created a research survey and then went to different locations like food banks and grocery stores, and he surveyed people. He got 100 people to take his survey, and then he had all these data points that he needed to analyze. What was his passion? His passion was actually rooted in both of his parents' work, and he only has a certain amount of monthly allowance, and he can't burn it all on buying takeout and fast food. So he's got to figure out how does he eat healthy and eat affordably, and he can't just be eating all of this junk food. So he's got to figure out how to make food. And then he realized, what if other people have this problem? What if I could create an app for people that have a hard time coming up with healthy recipes or finding access to healthy foods? And he creates this app, and he had conversations with professionals trying to make partnerships with different food-focused organizations. I mean, imagine a sophomore having a phone conversation with an adult trying to convince them to support and invest in a partnership with this app that he's trying to build. But this was the moment. Last fall, seems like a million years ago, he pitches during our open house. And when I saw the smile of these parents and their son who were looking at maybe to check out the school, like this school could be for my son, had this open house, and he's captivated. He's captivated this audience right now. And this was one of many. I want students all over the world. This is my North Star. How do we give our students this opportunity to share something that they're so excited about, that they care so much about, that they put so much energy and work, real work, but that they can captivate an audience? How do we create these opportunities for ourselves as well, where we're collaborating and we're doing experiences that are promoting our own creative thinking, our own problem solving? I run this 1 hour rapid prototype activity where you have to create an app that solves a problem at your school. And 9 times out of 10, they realize that it's not about the app. It's about figuring out how to identify and solve problems in our schools. And many times those teachers respond to me months later and say, we didn't build the app, but we tackled that problem. We actually assessed that problem and we were able to figure it out. And of course, I am the tech rabbi, so where's technology come into this? So technology is something that is having its moment of truth. Because when I shared this slide right now a year ago, it didn't mean the same thing as it meant right now. We talk a lot about don't pull the cart before the horse. But what's even worse is throwing rockets and roller skates on the horse and pretending that we're 21st century. We have to really reflect right now, this year, 2020, the 2020-2021 school year, as we're working our way through this pandemic, ensuring that we are safe and that our students are safe. What does the 21st century really look like? And how are we looking at the experiences that are now forced onto technology? Whether it's synchronous versus asynchronous learning, whether it's digitized, busy work and worksheets, that the video conference fatigue of sitting and being lectured to on a Zoom for 6 hours. I had a school that made me, I said it was a bad idea. They made me support them virtually for a 6-hour workshop. There were some independent work breaks in between. At the end, I just wanted to curl up and in my bed and just go to sleep. And I realized something. My students go through this all day, every day. 6 hours on Zoom, all day. We have to create new opportunities and new focuses for them. We have to look at the opportunity where technology can make the ordinary into something extraordinary. You know, this is a stop motion history project. This is 6th grade history. And what I loved about this picture, as I took the picture and then illustrated it, was that's the same world history textbook that I used when I was in 6th grade. And there's just something about the students using it as a stop motion stand because they realize that there's more information on the internet. And there's been new discoveries over the past, 20, 25 years that might change what's in this book. The books are static. The books are outdated the moment that they're printed. But our students have opportunities to leverage technology in creative ways. It doesn't always have to be wild and crazy. I don't think I'm sharing anything new right now at this moment when I'm sharing Flipgrid. If I am, get a Flipgrid account and use it on a regular basis. This gives students a voice to share and to reflect and to be accountable. But a lot of the times they don't want to be accountable on a Zoom or even in person. They don't want everyone to know because they're nervous, they're introverted, they're not comfortable, they're afraid that someone's going to judge them. So give them a space to have a voice, to share and to reflect and to learn and to showcase and share their learning. Or it can be something a little bit more fancy. I know a lot of us have students that don't want to have their cameras on. And every school community deals with this differently. Some schools are, very, very focused on you have to have your computer screen on the entire time. And if you don't, you're marked absent. And every school has to figure out what's right for their community. But what's the goal? Is the goal that I need to see every student at every moment? Or is it that they need to be actively engaged? And so I saw this floating around on Twitter from an educator, Ed Campos Jr. He basically said you could take Google Slides and you could put it in grid view. And you're able to actually assign each slide to a student or a group and then watch them live. Give them something to be accountable for and then have them produce that information that you can see. And then you know who's struggling and then you can message them and ask them if they have any questions. But it's simple things like this, just hacking and tweaking technology so that it can bring a new type of value. Because we don't have these opportunities as much as we'd like in most school communities where students can be this close working, collaborating together. I miss these days. So I share these types of stories and photos so that we can remember what it once was, so that we can take the experiences that we're doing right now, we can merge them together. We're not going back to what it used to be. We're never going back. But as we move forward, we have to find ways that we can still provide that value face-to-face, but that we won't lose that opportunity that the distance learning experience provided. As hard as it is and as stressful as it is, there are opportunities and good things that are coming out of this. I have students that are still on Tinkercad. They're still working, they're still designing, they're still creating. They're creating content for their math classes, whether it's in geometry class, where they're creating objects and then analyzing volume. You can take that down all the way into elementary school math. Same with a fractal activity. We had students design fractals for honors algebra 2, where they actually had to understand the formula. But then I was able to basically reverse engineer that activity so that 4th graders could also use Tinkercad to create fractal shapes and understand symmetry and patterns and replication. So these type of experiences are exciting, engaging, and they give context, they give substance to the learning and what happens. I have students that are creating pitch decks where they are presenting and communicating and being concise and informative and clear and sharing these ideas and communicating them to others. Or they're creating app experiences where they actually understand the needs of other people to bring them value. And they put crazy amount of hours into creating these amazing experiences. They want to create communities. They want to create designs that support and bring value to others. So whatever it is, the time is now. You know, I have a principle about not waiting for permission. It doesn't mean like do something wrong and then ask for forgiveness, right, versus permission. As educators, we don't have to wait for this magical opportunity where we get it all and we've built the skill, now we're ready to let our students. I tell my students all the time, I can only get you to level 5, but why am I going to be the obstacle to let you not get to level 30? I have to figure out what resources I can create, opportunities, support, structure, whatever it is, so that you can get as far as you can get. Because that perfection is the enemy of done. It's really important that we give our students an opportunity to know that when they're creating, when they're putting something out, when they're trying to build skills to bring value into the world, it doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to be well planned, well thought out. But just like if you take your smartphone right now and open it up to the settings, you're going to see that you're on version number. And there might be an update waiting that you haven't gotten around to updating yet, because software is a great example of what life should be like. Incremental updates, incremental improvements, as we're always trying to move forward to something better. I create YouTube videos on a regular basis. And then I burned myself out, and I was like, why am I burning myself out? Oh, because I'm not practicing what I preach. I gotta just create. So if anyone wants to share some great ideas of YouTube videos on my YouTube channel, you can just subscribe to that and let me know what you'd love to see. It would fuel my creation fire. But once again, it goes back to, who am I creating for? If I'm creating for myself, I can get burned out. If I'm creating because others need it, others need support, so then that creation is going to continue. And then I won't be intimidated by this failure, this wall of failure, because I know that it's incremental and I can keep going. And so whether students are prototyping, whether students are creating that perfect design or something that's just cardboard and paint, the bottom line is that they're thinking differently, they're thinking about others, they're trying to bring value to others. This is a really cool sort of chess 2.0 game inspired by, I think, Game of Thrones, where this student has created this wild game to play. But it was about him going out onto the quad and connecting with his peers and saying, hey, you want to play a game? Let me know what you think. It's about students creating robotic arms that have touch flex sensors that are going to let them actually manipulate this robot. Now, what if that robot hand was 5,000 miles away performing a task that they were creating in the comfort of their office somewhere else in the world? We have to create that hands-on experience. For ourselves, can't forget us. There's opportunities for us to work together, to create, to design. But whatever we do, we have to put our soul into it. And I know we do that because we're educators. Even when we're met with this incredible challenge right now with pandemic, distance learning, remote learning, hybrid learning, whatever we call it, I can't keep track of all the different ways that we define it right now. It is a challenge. But we show up every day because we put our soul into it, and we need to give our students that same passion, that same strength and perseverance so that they can put their soul into work that they do. To give them chances to explore in different ways, whether it's 20% time in our classroom, a lunch elective, after school, whatever it is, we want to give our students an opportunity to make something unique and provide value for others. And so I do it with my Entrepreneurship Spark Studio. I do it with students that are trying to develop startups and they're trying to pitch these different ideas to professionals and trying to take it to the next level and analyze competition and know how they're actually going to succeed against them, to develop that solution and know that they could do it because they're passionate and excited about it. But at the end of the day, the final principle is humility. Humility is not about thinking about yourself less. It's about thinking about others more. And so as we embark on this journey, moving forward, really understanding that creativity starts with a mindset. It ends with this humble feeling of having gratitude, giving that character trait to our students, and understanding that humility and gratitude are what create legacy. Our students have an opportunity to make a mark on the world, and we want it to be something that's powerful. We want it to be something that's incredible. And we want our students, as you can see on the screen, if you can see behind me, It's one of my favorite quotes. A classroom is found everywhere if you look at it right. And whether I'm in my studio in LA, well, I wish that I could be in the auditorium at one of your school sites, we have this opportunity to connect and to learn, and that learning can be an opportunity wherever we are. So I want to thank you all. I hope that we can bring this creative mindset into 100% time. You can connect with me across all social streams. If you didn't get a chance to scan the QR code, you can connect with me on my YouTube channel, on my social channels, and I'll make sure that I get those resources out to you. And I'm excited for our Q&A later on this afternoon. And I want to thank all of you for being here, for sharing conversations in the chat. And I'm so excited to take a look at those and help you feel that your creative mindset is ready to take action.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for presenting. On behalf of Regina Catholic Schools, we would just like to say thank you for joining us today. As you said at the beginning, educators need a sense of community, and we need to connect. So it's nice that even though we're not able to connect at our institute today physically in a space together, we want to thank you for bringing us together and allowing us to have this opportunity to connect with a common goal. So thank you for that. And we especially appreciated that you talked about creating opportunities for students to think about the abstract and the unknown, and giving students a voice to share and reflect and showcase their learning. And I like what you had at the end there with, you know, if you look, a classroom is everywhere. And I think going forward, something that we're going to take with us is, how do we find that space where teachers are excited, or where students and teachers both feel excited and find their passion, right? And how do we remember that that concept of failing and taking the time to reflect? So we do look forward to continuing the conversation with you in the Q&A this afternoon. For anybody who has signed up, I'm sure there are people who are really excited now to join you and ask you questions. And then everybody else, it is 10:22 right now, so take a quick break. We resume the second sessions at 10:30, so take a break, get a coffee, and then join your team's meetings for your respective sessions at 10:30. Thank you again, Tech Rabbi. We really appreciated it.
Thank you.